That contract for Knies has been fascinating when other guys around the league, and it's like, people say, oh, Toronto's this and Toronto's that. It seems like the number around Toronto just gets inflated so much for whatever reason. I have no idea. I talked about a Dawson Mercer extension that was, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 years at 4.5 or something like that. Similar stats, and everyone in Toronto, oh, you got to give Knies 9. It's like, really? Why does it have to be 9?
Well, I mean, I can give you the answer as to why it always happens here, and it was because they allowed it to. They allowed it to, and they talked themselves into how tough it is. Like, the Leafs played the victim card for a long time, and you know, they actually may have been the ones perpetuating behind the scenes how tough it is and how crazy it is, and they allowed everyone else to talk on their behalf. You know, we always mention it. Well, why is Tkachuk talking about this? Why is Marchand? Why is McKinnon? Why are all these other players talking about how great all these players are? And the Leafs, the way that they operated, bought into that and thought it's so tough and we can't find anyone and no one's going to come up here and we better just pay these guys and forget it. Now, some of it was out of desperation because they were in a window and they thought they could win. And they thought we can't mess around and throw something away here and allow some sort of a holdout to go into October or November and throw off the mojo of the team. So just forget it, get it done. But they decided to just treat Matthews like he was McDavid and treat Marner like he was Draisaitl and treat Nylander like he was Kucherov. They decided to do that. They didn't evaluate properly. They just said, forget it. We think those guys are going to be like that. So we're going to operate this way and just overpay, and allow every player to win everything. And this is what happens with the culture of the team. You talk about the DNA of the team.
Right.
A lot of it, if I'm a guy like Knies, now I don't know him personally, and he says all the right things. I like this kid a lot, man.
Yeah.
I love the way he loves being a Maple Leaf. I love the way he plays. I love where his future is going, and I look forward to seeing it blossom here in Toronto. But he would not be in the wrong to look at the other guys who are the leaders and say, well, this is how they operate. This is how they negotiate.
Why wouldn't I?
They demand exactly. Yeah. And that's on the team to stop it. And I don't know if that was Shanahan. I have a sneaking suspicion it was. Maybe it was Dubas, maybe it was Lou, maybe it was Tree Living in some ways. But it's on Tree Living and Pelly and the Maple Leafs to stop that garbage because it's been killing them for years. It's been killing them. You can't overpay. And it's not that these aren't great players. They're all great players. Yep. It's not like it's some egregious overpay. It's not. But every $1 million counts. Every extra year counts. You know, like we don't need to rip off the Band-Aid here and get into this, but I said it 2 weeks ago. The reality is if they got Matthews to sign for 8 years at entry level, he'd still have a few years left at 11.6. Now you got value with the cap going up. If you got Marner at an appropriate number for 8 years, he'd have 2 more years. Now, maybe you wouldn't want that. Maybe you'd want to move off it anyway. Willie, the same thing. Willie should be making $6.9 million. Guy sits in Sweden until November, and they still only give him 6 years? Don't force him to take 8 at that number? Like that, they just kept capitulating and doing it. And I'm with you, man. Like, you talk DNA change, look in the mirror. Treat Matthew Knies the same way he would be treated in Jersey, in Utah, in Edmonton, everywhere else.
Yeah.
Because you're damaging yourself.
Yeah, those organizations you just mentioned, it's not $9 million.
No,
you know
it's
what I
not.
mean? Like
he's a really good young player who got to play with great players.
I love people have, like, since what happened with the Edmonton Oilers last year, people are really horned up to bring up the idea of an offer sheet. Like, as soon as it turned January, it was like, oh, watch out for this guy, offer sheet target number 1, and it's like, okay, here we go. And then the 8s and 9s and 10s, and it was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, you can't, like, listen, if it's an 8-year deal, you're going to have to pay him more money. Clearly.
Absolutely.
It's a long-term deal. Yep. You got to pay him more than that. And I don't know what that number is. Maybe it's 7, maybe it's 8, and maybe that makes sense for both parties. But if it's a bridge, it's nowhere close to that number.
No, it's a smaller number,
not
but
even
he bets
close.
on him. But the team gives him a bump, and he makes good money.
Of course, good player.
And then he bets on himself and goes, let's kick the can down the road for 2 years. And if I'm a 40-goal scorer, the number looks different. If he's a 26-goal scorer, the number, he'll still get a bump, but it won't be as egregious. Like, that's the way I look at it. You still got to figure out And I think there's a lot of people. He had a fantastic year.
Yep.
But keep in mind, he played on the top line and he earned it, and played with Matthews and Marner. This is going to look different next year. The playmaker, if Marner doesn't return, which, controls his own future, they're going to have a different playmaker on that line. They're going to have somebody different. And they'll still have lots of success, but he might get 26 goals instead of 29, or he might get 38 or 40. Who knows? Like
internal improvement, they might need
exactly.
They might need that internal improvement.
I think you always need internal improvement, and if you don't, then you start looking at it and go, who can we move past here? Because that's we're always focused on, and rightfully so, Marner and Tavares' contract. What's Knies going to look like? What is Yarncroke going to improve internally, or is it just healthy? Is Max Domi going to have a bounce back year? You hope so, because he's on term. That's the thing I'm looking at, because those guys aren't making $700,000. It's $4 million, it's $3 million, or $2.8 million. Like every penny counts. And if those guys aren't going to have that internal improvement, you might have to look and go, I'm going to move past certain situations. Again, you're not turning over the whole team. I'm just trying to think out loud here. It's just not the two players we're constantly focusing on. You got to look at the whole group and see where you can improve. And that's the job for Brad Treliving.
That's true. And that's what every team does. I mean, look at Edmonton. Yeah. There's an example where, yes, they got hit with Broberg and Holloway, getting basically swept from underneath them. And it was a brilliant play by St. Louis. They knew they had Edmonton backed into a corner because of their cap situation and how deep into the offseason it was. They offered it. The players were willing to take it, and they got the players. And they're ecstatic because they should be. They're two really good players on incredibly, I think, team-friendly contracts, even considering this scenario. But look where Edmonton is now. You think they care about that? Obviously, they'd probably love to have Holloway, even though he was hurt going into the playoffs. I'm sure they'd like to have Broberg. They didn't sit there and cry about it. No, they said, all right, you got us. Let's see what else we can do here.